Eason here, and welcome back to Metal Monday, where I will be talking about albums that I might recommend that you listen to so you can start your week off right. This week I'll be talking about one of the best albums to come out last year, which also happens to be the debut of a San Diego metallic hardcore quintet. The album that I am talking about is Pissed Regardless's Imperial Cult. As you might be gathering by the name, this is an angry little band from San Diego, California that was formed in 2013, the same year when they released their first demo, the eponymous Pissed Regardless. The band followed this up with two EPs, the 2015's Force Fed Gods and 2018's Feed the Birds. 1 year after their second EP and their third release overall, the band finally decided to come up with a full-length album, which is Imperial Cult. Pissed Regardless's sound is usually mentioned under the label metallic hardcore, but I don't think that label by itself is very self-explanatory, in that Pissed Regardless doesn't just play your very basic run-of-the-mill hardcore with metal elements sort of sprinkled in. The metal elements that are brought into and blended with the band's core sound adds a little bit of finesse to the proceedings, in that it prevents the band from being lumped wholesale into the category of metalcore, even though by the way some of these songs and some of these riffs are structured, the band's sound does veer precariously close to metalcore at times. However, this does not in any way mean that when it's time to fight, when it's time to bring it, Pissed Regardless pulls any punches. Despite the lack of any steroid-infused muscle bulk, the sound brought forward by the band is still quite burly and quite strong. What is waiting for you for the most part in Imperial Cult is chug-heavy, hardcore punk-grounded riffs married to thick, menacing bass, laid over, sturdy, extremely well-played drums, which are laid under shrieking, extremely fucking pissed off vocals. Speaking of the vocals, Imperial Cult isn't a place where death growls and low gutturals live. Matt's chosen method of vocal delivery is more adjacent to post-hardcore and or screamo. There's even a moment on this album, which is on the song Dichotomy, where Matt goes what I term full Evan Seinfeld, in that he delivers these somewhat nasal, somewhat clean in only the way a hardcore band can make clean vocals sound, that is very reminiscent of some of Biohazard's work. Now, a little deeper look into the songs may clear up what I'm trying to relate to you in terms of what Imperial Cult in and of itself is composed of. Pissed Regardless treat their hardcore foundations as the base materials for the drug that they are concocting and going to offer to you. Whatever other influence that they add on top of it is just the thing that they are cutting this drug with. For instance, on the tracks like Bleeder, Dark Disciple, or Castrated, the band uses blatant post-hardcore influences. This is also the instant where somewhat noodling guitar work and overall song structures start to veer somewhat close to metalcore, but stop just shy of it. It also helps that the song Castrated in particular is cut more with hardcore punk than it is with metal, and it is influences and the way the influences are utilized like these that make Imperial Cult a dynamic album. Because whether or not you are making hardcore, metallic hardcore, or just straight up metal, or straight up anything, if your album is one note, even if it is great, even if it's hard, even if it hits right, it is still going to be somewhat boring because nobody wants to deal with monotony. And thankfully, Pissed Regardless have managed to concoct a varied, diverse experience for their listeners. Just like how the songs I have mentioned have been cut with post-hardcore and castrated more with hardcore punk, the song Behold a Pale Horse is cut with death metal. This song has a groove embedded into the heart of it that is so prevalent that it just stops this shy of becoming a bona fide death metal track. There There's also a little smidge of crossover thrash in this song, which makes it a very interesting turn, especially considering the fact that right after this, the band suddenly changes gears and shifts back into burly, sturdy hardcore mode with the song Dichotomy. Speaking of Dichotomy, Dichotomy is actually one of the 3 tracks on this album that run more with a purer strain of hardcore than the others. If I go back to my drug metaphor, their hardcore was the baser material, then songs like Maniacal, Halls of Hate, or Dichotomy are purer strains of the base material offered to only the hardcore junkies. These songs tend to stick out in the tracklist mainly because the other tracks on the album are busy cutting their hardcore with other things. Amongst all the variations, the purer strains hit that much harder, and these are used to hook you into the album so you can not only enjoy the drug in its purest form, you can also enjoy the other delights they have prepared for you. In that vein, however, the song that can be considered an overdose is mostly All Bets Are Off. This is a song that is a far more pure hardcore punk number that suddenly, especially after the halfway point, decides to ramp up intensity to such a point that if they had taken this just one step further, this would definitely have ended up a grindcore track. The band ramping up the intensity, bringing tension into the mix in a tangible way while the vocals just keep repeating, all bets are off, all bets are off, just reaches a crescendo that is a marvel to listen to. Like, seriously, all it would have taken was a fucking blast beat and this was grind. As you might be gathering, the track list on Imperial Cult is wonderfully varied. This is also thanks to the fact that Piss Regardless managed to avoid the mistake of clustering tracks with similar influences together. The album manages to keep you interested and engaged by constantly switching gears. One moment is throwing death at you, the next moment you're in grindcore land. And because of the arrangement of the track list, Imperial Cult has a wonderful flow start to finish. The band's talent in creating not just a collection of songs, but an album, a whole work of art, is to be commended, especially considering the fact that almost all the songs in the album, with the exception of the final one, is there to prepare you for the big finish. You see, closing songs on albums have to do 2 things. One, they have to bring the album to a close. They have to be the natural conclusion of an album. Second, while closing that, they have to leave you wanting more. And boy, does Piss Regardless manage that. You see, the closing track, Hell's Coming With Me, is one marvelous tour de force that makes the rest of the album feel like just the preamble to this glorious climax. Hell's Coming With Me starts out, in contrast with the rest of the album, with clean guitar tones. The song builds its atmosphere from this rather soft start, with post-metal and sludge-like riffs being brought into the mix, everything rising to a crescendo that is marked with Matt screaming his lungs off what I believe to be the central message of this album, which is fuck your modern world. While there are no lyrics available for this album anywhere, at least that I can find, what I hear is that Pissed Regardless isn't just a band posturing for the sake of posturing. The lyrics to this album aren't written anywhere, or at least, I couldn't find them. But from what I hear, Pissed Regardless isn't just singing about how angry they are that they're broke or whatever. The whole concept that seems to underlie Imperial Cult is the fact that the modern world in and of itself, while bringing some conveniences to you, is also enslaving and exploiting you. Now, this is nothing new for hardcore or hardcore punk. The one point where I think Pissed Regardless managed to succeed is that their anger at the world that is continuously chipping away at their existence is genuine. Or at the very least, it feels genuine. Any moron with a pen and a pad can write a socially conscious song, or at least a song that they believe is socially conscious, but it takes more than just yelling out "punch a Nazi" to actually come up with something that might resonate with people and or might communicate some genuine rage on your part. Despite how angry you might want to sound, it is actually very difficult to bring out genuine anger in a situation like this, and it isn't just the in-your-face nature of their music or their hardcore underpinnings. It is just that the whole album feels like one raised middle finger against the whole world, which, if we are judging this album by standards of heavy music, is quite a triumph. The production on Imperial Cult is on point. It never feels too raw or it never feels too polished. It has been gauged just right to bring you a well-rounded, well-polished, but not glossy experience. The guitars are sharp and loud, the vocals come through loud and clear, the drums sit comfortably, the bass is very present, and overall the sound is very well-rounded, so kudos to their engineers. So overall, Pissed Regardless delivers a very tight, very angry, volatile little package for your listening pleasure. If you are into heavy music at all, if you're a hardcore fan, grindcore fan, hardcore punk fan, metal fan, if you are into angry, dark, pissed off music at all, I don't see any reason why you shouldn't love Imperial Cult. Pissed Regardless's Imperial Cult is one of my favorite albums of last year, and as such, I would highly recommend this to anyone who enjoys pissed off music. For now though, I think I'm just gonna go listen to Imperial Cult again or put on some Biohazard, because that Evan Seinfeld comment that I had to film numerous times sort of put Biohazard into my head. Hope you have a great week. Until next time, it's Eason. Peace out. You know, I keep thinking I should maybe do a review with these shades on, but I don't think I have found the right album for that, so stay tuned.